Back Look Cinema, the podcast.
Hey, Jack Reed. I get more action in a week than you've had your entire life. I've got houses in LA, Paris, and Vail. In each one, a 70-inch plasma screen. So I suggest you wipe that stupid smile off your face before I come over there and smack it off. You feeling strong, my friend? Call me Elf one more time. Hi, my name is Zoe. It's spelled Z-O or Z-O for those of you outside of the U.S. Welcome back, friends. This is the 166th episode of Backlook Cinema, the podcast, where we take a look back at the movies of yesteryear, especially the movies of the latter half of the last millennium. If you like what you're about to hear, then please tell your family, tell your friends, and tell that really tall, goofy guy over there dressed as a Christmas elf about Backlook Cinema, the podcast. He seems happy, doesn't he? So I am finally back with an episode. I believe this episode was supposed to come out before Christmas, and here it is late, coming after Christmas. And this is due to technical difficulties. You see, the thing was the plan. I'm going out of the house, right? I'm going to be out of the house for an extended period of time. And so the plan was to pack my PC and all the gear that I might need to produce a podcast and, to edit and all that other nice stuff. And when I packed the PC, what was missing was the power cord, and the battery does not have enough life to do all the work required in order to produce the show. And I don't know what happened. I don't know how the power cord did not get packed. I feel like it was one of the first things that I put in the computer bag, and somehow, and it's one of those two-part cords because I'm using a gaming PC, so it uses up a lot of power. So there's the one half of the cord with the power brick, and then the other half of the cord that plugs into the power brick and into the wall. And the part that I did not have packed was the part that plugs into the power brick and into a wall or outlet or whatever. So I was stuck. And so I felt that I could probably record the podcast off the phone, but still I would have to edit it. And as I was using the computer without the battery, I realized that the computer stays plugged in almost all the time. So the battery itself is shot. It's done. It doesn't really hold that much power anymore. So if I want to take the computer on extended journeys, I'm going to have to replace the battery. But I've had difficulties and what do you call that? And complications. But we're back now. We're back. Happy after Christmas. Is that a thing? Can you say that? Can you say happy belated Christmas? I don't know. I don't know anymore. So anyways, I really want to talk about Elf. So let's get into it. Elf came out in 2003. I want to talk about how I came across Elf, because the thing about it is that I really do try to stay between the 70s and the 90s. But every once in a while, I might dip into the 60s or the 30s, or I might dip into the 2000s. And the reason that I'm dipping into the 2000s now is, for one reason, I don't have a lot of Christmas movies that I watched that's really all that endearing to me that I was growing up with. I mean, there are a couple, but not a whole bunch. And the other thing is that I discovered this movie. Like I always knew that this movie was around, and I had always wanted to watch it, and just never got around to watching it until maybe about 20 years ago. Maybe it was 20, probably around that time, probably around 20. Maybe 15 years ago. And we just happened to be gathered at my mom's house, just chilling and have a good time. And Elf just so happened to be on TV. So I watched it. And not the most ideal situation of watching TV. It was like a grainy image on the television. But just watching it and having a good time, I was like, yeah, I need to talk about Elf. I need to talk about this family gathering that we had, and we was all gathered around the television, and it was like it was nostalgia for the good old days growing up and being gathered around one set and sharing an entertainment experience. So that's what the movie Elf represents to me, and also it was a really funny movie. So Elf, let's get into it. Let's talk about what this movie is about in the opening credits. Buddy's unusually tall for an elf at Santa's workshop. All his life, he's tried to fit in with his fellow elves, but things just don't seem to work out exactly right. Then, by chance, he finds out that he's not an elf at all, but a human being. Wanting to find a purpose in his life, he sets out from the North Pole to find his biological father. Buddy's goals are difficult. Indeed, because Buddy's father is on Santa's naughty list. Elf was released November 7th, 2003. Produced by New Line Cinema, Guy Who Walks in the Bar Productions, and Gold/Miller Productions. It grossed over $178 million in the US and Canada and over $230 million worldwide on a reported budget of $33 million. Now, to adjust that for inflation, that would be like if it was released today, then it would have grossed over $305 million over the course of its run. And in the US and Canada, it would have grossed over $394 million worldwide. And the budget would have been $56 million. And that's good money right there. That's good money. This was a certified hit. It made so much money. And I don't even know if the people who worked on the film, that they knew it was going to be a hit or that they knew that we're making a blockbuster, but that is exactly what this movie turned out to be. And they really did put in the work in this movie, and it was, I feel like it earned every penny. Elf, starring Will Ferrell as Buddy. You may have seen him in Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby, Anchorman, Blades of Glory, or Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery. I've always liked Will Ferrell ever since I first seen him on Saturday Night Live. And the movies, like most of the movies he's been in, especially the earlier comedic works, have just been a joy to watch. He's such a fun character actor. And I've only written down some of the movies that I really liked that he was in. And lately he's been more engaged in dramatic roles. And I've heard, but not seen, that he's really good in these more dramatic movies. And the last thing I believe I've seen him in are his cameo appearances in The Boys. Even though his appearances there are supposed to be dramatic, they come off as being campy. And I think that works for what he's doing on that show. Up next is James Caan, who plays Walter Hobbs. You may have seen him in Thief, Rollerblade from 1975, Godfather, or The Godfather. Everybody knows him from The Godfather. Misery. Everybody knows him from Misery. I think less people know him from a movie that I like that he was in called Alien Nation. And you can check out what I thought about that movie in episode number 84. That was a wild ride, and I feel like he was perfectly cast in Alien Nation. He does really good at playing the exasperated person, the exasperated man, and I feel like that's what he channels in this movie. Bob Newhart plays Papa Elf. You may have seen or heard him in The Rescuers, In and Out, Legally Blonde 2, Red, White, and Blonde. And I don't think I've seen any of these, but what I have seen him on is Newhart. And that's where, and he's really a staple of television. He really isn't a movie actor. He really finds his home in television. So you see him in a lot of guest spots in his own shows. He's had a number of shows named after himself. Besides Newhart, he's had a show called The Bob Newhart Show, and he's had a show called Bob. So it's really... because he has such an esteemed personality, it's easy to slap his name on a project and just deliver the goods. Up next is Zooey Deschanel. She plays Jovi, and you may have also seen her in 500 Days of Summer, Trolls, or Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy from 2005. And I've always liked Zoe, even though it's funny because I have a picture in my mind of precisely what she's supposed to look like. But at the same time, she looks different in different movies that she happens to be in. It's almost like she's a perfect chameleon. Up next is Edward Asner. He plays Santa, and you may have also seen or heard his voice in the movie Up. He's also been in El Dorado or Above Suspicion. But this is another TV personality, just like Bob Newhart, mostly known for his television roles. And I mostly know him from The Mary Tyler Moore Show. Mary Steinberger, she plays Emily Hobbs. And you may have seen her in Back to the Future, Part 3. Step Brothers, another movie with Will Ferrell that I thoroughly enjoyed. Or Philadelphia, that I covered in episode number 156 with Emily Martinelli. We also have Daniel Tay. He plays Michael Hobbs. You may have seen him in American Splendor, Brooklyn Rules, or Beer League. And you haven't seen him lately because he has retired from acting, but he's fairly good at his work in Elf. And I haven't seen these other movies, but he's really good in this one. Faison Love plays Gimbel's manager, Wanda. And you may have also seen him in Just My Luck, The Replacements, or Friday. And I talked about Friday on another podcast called Fact Dude Digs Flicks with Andy Heller. And we had a great time talking about Friday. I should cover it on this podcast too. We just had a great time watching and talking about that movie. And there's also a little bit of trivia regarding Faison Love's character's name. So stick around for that. And because he's actually just credited as Gimbel's manager, but his name tag says Wanda. So there's a funny story behind that. I'm just going to take it that being his name is Wanda. And finally, we have Peter Dinklage. He plays Miles Finch. And that was the monologue I read in the beginning of the show was from Miles Finch talking to Buddy the elf. And you may have seen him in The Station Agent, X-Men Days of Future Past, or Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. And yeah, sure, you may have seen him on those things, but I think most of us remember him from Game of Thrones. This movie was directed by Jon Favreau, and you may have seen his other works, including The Lion King, The Jungle Book, Chef, Aliens and Cowboys, which I really enjoyed, or Iron Man, which I enjoyed even more. And right now, Jon Favreau is neck deep in the Star Wars movies and also or the Star Wars universe, I should say. And he's also fairly involved on the Marvel side. So, but seeing him in the movies, I forget that he's also a fairly talented actor. So it's, or that I see him as an actor and he's a fairly talented director. So it's fun. It's fun seeing him in the movies, and it's also fun knowing that he's pretty good as a director. This movie was written by David Berenbaum, and you may have seen some of his other movies, including The Spiderwick Chronicles, Zoom, or The Haunted Mansion. And actually, Elf is the very first script that he was able to sell and that they produced into a movie. So, yeah, he's pretty good on his first effort. The music is by John Debney. You may have also heard his work in The Jungle Book, The Greatest Showman, The Passion of the Christ, or Iron Man 2. He's doing some good work there. And then as I listened to the soundtrack, it sounds perfectly Christmassy. And at the same time original. Like you knew that it was a Christmas song made for a Christmas movie, but it didn't really sound like other Christmas soundtracks, and it didn't sound generic, and I really enjoyed it. So that's it for the opening credits. The only thing I got is, the same thing I've been saying all along, that hasn't happened yet. And that is trying to get my eBay shop off the ground, Bazaar de Alonso. Still not, hadn't worked on that in quite some time, technical difficulties and all. And also I implore you to check out backlickscinema.com/shop, where, I got the t-shirts, I got the mugs, I got tumblers, all sorts of t-shirts. Did I say t-shirts? Long sleeve shirts, hoodies, the good stuff. Check that out. So that's it for the announcements, and let's go over and talk about our favorite parts. So, I had a ball watching this movie. There are a bunch of favorite parts that I have, but also I want to talk about like the themes of the movies, and I think the theme of this movie can be summed up in they have like an elf oath or something that they recite to remind themselves of, I don't know, their elfness or their Christmasness or their goals, their goals in life for a Christmas elf working in Santa Claus workshop. So and they have this oath that they recite. And the first part is, treat every day like Christmas. And you can kind of see this in Buddy's whole attitude. He has a very positive mental attitude. He's always smiling. He's always generous. And he's always really enthusiastic. Or I should say most of the time. Like, it's not like he can't feel sad or he can't be down. Like, he can experience those feelings. But overall, he's always maintained or he strives to maintain a very positive mental attitude. And that's what I take from, and he's like, through his attitude, he tries to spread it to other people. And that is his expression of treating every day like Christmas. The second thing is, there's room for everyone on the nice list. So you know that Santa Claus has a nice list and a naughty list. And part of Buddy's cheerful demeanor is to try to redeem his father. Like, he's cheerful, and I'm talking about his natural father, and he's cheerful around his natural father, and both naturally and I think subconsciously, to try to infect his father with that, that positive mental attitude, that generous spirit. And it's hard. It's a hard thing to work on his father. And the other thing, that his father is on the naughty list. And I think part of Buddy's mission, or part of his ideal situations, is to get his father off Santa Claus's naughty list. And the last thing is, the best way to spread Christmas cheer is singing loud for all to hear. This is something that all of the elves are supposed to embody, and which Buddy does, although poorly. I think that is the thing that he mostly struggles with, is singing, because it's like, if you ask him to sing, he gets nervous and he has a hard time doing it, and he's not good at it anyway. But then there are times, almost like maybe subconsciously, or maybe when the situation is right, then he's able to sing. He's able to sing through his natural enthusiasm and his generosity and his positive mental attitude. So I think that this is probably the thing that he struggles with the most, but it's something that he's working on. So there are a lot of things that I really like about this movie. I'm going to start with Will Ferrell as Buddy. Just I don't know if it could be more perfectly cast. I don't know, maybe somebody like Robin Williams or Jim Carrey, they could probably do this work, but Will Ferrell's very good at this. And just all the antics that he gets into and all the things that he's willing to do. Like, he's done some things in his movies that physically hurt him, and specifically this movie, Elf. And I want to talk about those things in the trivia section, but there are a lot of things that he does, and the way he's so naive, and you believe in his naivety, and you believe that he's seeing stuff for the first time. He's able to bring, even though he's a grown man, you could see that he's clearly a grown man. He still has a childlike demeanor about him that is amazing, and he pulls off spectacularly well. One of the things I noticed that Buddy had an interaction with it's like the head toy shop elf. He's working in a toy shop, and the head elf at the toy shop is the same actor that was in A Christmas Story. So it kind and A Christmas Story is my favorite movie, or is my favorite Christmas movie. So I like the way this movie Elf kind of ties in to A Christmas Story through that actor. I think his last name is Billingsley, and he's not in a lot of movies, but every once in a while he'll pop up. So Billingsley will has popped up also in Iron Man and Spider-Man No Way Home. So every once in a while, yeah, he'll pop up. But he spends most of his time as a movie producer rather than an actor. Oh, and the last thing he was in was the sequel to A Christmas Story called A Christmas Story, Christmas Story. I think that's what it's called. Not as good as the original, but I like that it was there. They sort of kind of brought back that nostalgia, that nostalgic feeling in that sequel, though. I think it's only for the fans of the original. Another one of my favorite parts is how Buddy just, there are a bunch of antics that Buddy gets into, and I'm going to group all of his antics and suggest that his antics are my favorite parts of the movie. So, like, there's this thing where Buddy gets hit by a cab. It's like he's just crossing the street without, without caution, or without the without the knowledge that there are cars on the street and that he has to be mindful of the cars. So he's just walking across the street, being totally oblivious to the traffic, and he gets nailed by a cab. And it's just the way he gets hit by a car that was funny. Or the other thing, like, probably this could stand alone as my favorite part, but so I'll skip that. I'm going to give that its own section. There's a part where he gets a pinprick at the doctor. So his natural father takes him to a medical doctor for a DNA test, ostensibly, to see if he's actually related to this man child. And he acts just like a child to the doctor, and they have to distract him in order to pick his finger. And so they get him distracted. They prick his finger with the doctor pricks his finger with the needle, and he like screams. And I think the scream comes from the shock of being pricked. And it's like it's just like a child, and it's fantastic. So that's one of his antics. Another one is how he gets stuck in the revolving door. Well, he doesn't get stuck in the revolving door. He just plays in the revolving door. Like, he goes in there, and that's one of his favorite things to do is to go into the revolving door and run inside the revolving space as fast as he can, and just having the best time of his life running around in a revolving door. Or another thing that happened is that when he meets an escalator for the first time at the mall, and he's trying to get on the moving stairs, and he doesn't know how to do it, and there's a crowd around him, so the crowd has to kind of let him get on the escalator himself, and he has one leg on one step, and then he waits for the escalator to move up some, and then he puts his next foot on the last step, and he's like spread out like he's about to do a split, but he's on the escalator, and he's holding on to the armrests on both sides for dear life, and he's because he's so not used to the escalator. Here's a fun fact that an escalator had been used as a amusement rides in some other parts of the world. That's how innovative it was when it was first developed, that people used it. They used it as entertainment, not as a means of getting from one floor to the next. One of his other antics is that he had a candy diet. There are the 4 food groups of elves. I don't want to go into it, but it's all just sugar. And he puts sugar on everything, and he eats sugary candy all the time. And, I'll have a piece of candy or two. I'm not above that, but it's like the way he was just pouring maple syrup on pancakes that made me physically ill. It was just so gross. And he put pancakes and sugar and sweets on everything, and it was hard to watch. It was almost like watching a horror movie, or watching a gory scene in a slasher. That having him eat, and that's so wild. Apparently, he got sick from eating all the sugary sweets, and I can't help but wonder, why did the crew just replace the sugary stuff with something that just, because it was just maple syrup. So get a sauce that looked like but was not maple syrup, like, or get some kind of like ketchup or tomato sauce that they can make to look like maple syrup or something like that. I don't know. I'm not a chef. I know there's a chef out there that can make imitation sugar or something. I don't understand why they had him eat so much sugar that he got sick and was throwing up. It doesn't make any sense. But that's what happens. That's the commitment that Will Ferrell had to this movie, is eating all this sugar. So those are some of the antics that I really liked. I really like those things that were incorporated into the film, and that was just, it was just funny. It just, I like the bits. I like the bits in the movie. So one I want to go back to, I thought this deserved its own entry into my favorite parts section, and that is the fake Santa exposed. That's what I'm. So there's a scene where, it's a scene where Elf, well, not Elf, but Buddy accidentally gets hired into to be an elf for the mall Santa, because he's dressed as an elf for most of the movie. So he happens to be in the mall. A mall manager happens to see him, and he thinks that Buddy is already working there, and it was because he's in costume or whatnot. It's like, you need to get over here. You need to put that stuff down. And what Buddy is looking at the time is a lingerie for, where is a Christmas themed lingerie. He has no idea what it is, so he's just looking at it, trying to puzzle it. And there's a sign on the lingerie that says that, for that special someone or whatever. So the manager makes him put down the lingerie and brings him over to where Santa is supposed to show up. And then he makes an announcement how Santa's supposed to come the next day. And because Buddy is supposed to be in that place where all the elves are at, and not wandering around the mall. So the next day, Santa shows up, and it's obviously an actor playing Santa, not the Santa that Buddy knows. And so when Buddy sees him, he says, well, actually, I feel like this is in two parts. But before Buddy actually meets Santa, it's when he goes over to where the elves are, and then the mall manager, he makes an announcement. He's like, okay, Santa's going to be here tomorrow at such and such time. And then Buddy is screaming. He goes, Santa, I know him. And that's one of my favorite parts. As Buddy is so super excited about Santa. That is amazing. How enthusiastic and joyful he is. And it's impactful. It's like when you see the look on Will Ferrell's face, it's like he looks genuinely enthusiastic about seeing Santa, and that's amazing, and that's why I love that part so much. And then on the next, when I think it's the next day, he sees Santa, and he realizes it's not the real Santa. It's not the Santa he knows. And it's like, you're not Santa. You're fake. You're a fake Santa. You live on a bed of lies or something like that. Because he's so disheartened that this guy is pretending to be Santa, and nobody explained to him that people actually dress up to be Santa. And it causes him to have a fight and to lose his job that he never actually had in the first place, and get thrown in jail, for which he has to be bailed out by his father. So his father is Walter Hobbs, played by James Caan. Let me talk a little about him, because that's another one of my favorite parts, is James Caan as Walter Hobbs. That's just, whenever he's on the screen, being impatient, being exasperated, being confused, trying to figure out what is he going to do with this full-grown man that he didn't know was his son. And that was amazing. That was a joy to watch. It's just all of his reactions to the whole situation. Like, what if you were a grown man with a family, and all of a sudden another grown man shows up at your door claiming to be your son and acting like an elf? Like, James Caan really does a fantastic performance. It's like we can live vicariously through him being in that situation. I mean, it absolutely works. And he's on a naughty list because he's kind of a he's he doesn't understand how to connect with people. He's having a problem connecting with his son, with his wife, and not caring about children, even though he runs the he's I don't know exactly what his job is, but I think he approves books, or for children. I don't know if the publisher is fully a children's book publishing company, or if Walter is just in charge of the children's division. But for somebody who's supposed to be in charge of children books, it's like he has a lack of understanding of how to write stories for children, or what a children's story should look like. He doesn't care about the audience for whom he is writing. So I think that is a problem with him as a person. Like, if he learns to reach out and care about other people, then he's able to write or approve better stories, because he's not a writer himself. I think he's an editor. And if he cared about children more, he could approve better stories, or he would edit better stories, or something of that nature. But yeah, I really enjoyed James Caan as Walter. Another one of my favorite parts is there's a snowball fight that Michael has with a bunch of kids. So at first, Michael is trying to disassociate himself from his much older brother, Buddy, and it's like he's running away from Buddy, trying to tell people that that's not his brother, and this or that. And Buddy's just too enthusiastic to allow Michael to get away with this subterfuge. It's like as far as he's concerned, or not, yeah, Michael Hobbs. So as far as he's concerned, they're best friends, and they've been best friends all their lives. And in the midst of this, and in the midst of Buddy trying to connect with Michael as they walk home, they get attacked. It's a surprise attack from a snowball fight, and you have snowballs coming in all directions, and they have to find cover. And it's funny because it's like shot with the idea of like this is an action movie, and so they're trapped behind some barriers, and that's when Buddy starts making snowballs. He tells Michael to make snowballs, and he's making snowballs. But given his upbringing in the North Pole, he makes a pile of snowballs in minutes, like maybe in a minute. He makes a huge pile of snowballs, and then he starts throwing them like he's a machine gun. Like he's rapidly firing off these off these snowballs and hitting all of the kids. Like he's not missing these kids with these snowballs. And then they do a spoof on a sniper where a kid's running away, and Michael is like, that kid, he's getting away, and Buddy has Michael give him a snowball, and then he basically walks him down with the snowball, tags him with the snowball the same way a sniper would, and knocks the kid onto his on his butt. So that was a fun part. So the last bit I want to talk about, as far as one of my favorite parts, I mean, there are lots of things in the movie. Ed Asner was awesome as Santa Claus, and you had the elves, the way the elves were in the book was great. And when Buddy's father finally kind of turned over into a new leaf and discovers the meaning of Christmas, I think that worked out pretty well. But I want to talk about this bit that was going on throughout the movie. This is Buddy sitting on his adopted father's lap. So his adopted father is, I think his name is Papa Elf. Papa Elf is 490 years old, or at least Papa Elf was 490 when he became like the manager of Santa's sleigh or something like that. So maybe Papa Elf is much older, but anyways, so there's this bit where full grown Buddy is sitting on Papa Elf's lap. I think at first it's him as his younger self, like as a child. So he's a large child sitting on an elf, and then he's sitting on his Papa Elf's back, Papa Elf's lap as a full grown adult, and that just looks funny. And you can see. You can see Papa Elf, his legs are like twitching from the weight of Buddy. And then at the end of the film, Buddy is presumably married to his girlfriend, Jovi, played by Zoe Deschanel. And they go and visit his foster father at the North Pole. And, they bring along their son. They have a baby. And the last bit that they do in the movie is when Papa Elf, he says, bring that baby over to me. So Buddy goes over to his foster father, and instead of handing the baby over to his foster father, as you would expect, he sits on Papa Elf's back. He sits on Papa Elf's lap in the same way he sat on Papa Elf's lap when he was younger, with the baby in his hand. So, you see Papa Elf struggling under the weight of both Buddy and Buddy's baby, and his leg just twitching. And that was like the perfect cap to this movie. So yeah, those were I think those were 5 of my favorite parts. I wasn't counting them. Maybe that was 4. What were your favorite parts of Elf? Write in and let me know. I'm thinking about changing the email, the name of the email, because right now the email is fanmail@backlookcinema.com. But I don't know. When I made that name up, it was kind of like, because I couldn't think of anything else. Is there a better name? Is there a better name than fanmail@backlookcinema.com? Let me know, right? Because I'm about ready to change it, but I don't know what to change it to. So that's it for my favorite parts. Let me know what yours are, and now let's talk about the trivia. So I got the top 10 trivia that I could find, and you can find this on IMDb. That's where I get most of my trivia from. So in the first thing I picked up, the scene when Buddy eats different candies and pastries with spaghetti noodles had to be shot twice because Will Ferrell vomited the first time. And you heard me rant about this. Why are they having him eat a bunch of sugar? It doesn't make any sense. Maybe this was Will Ferrell being, what's the word? The method. Maybe he was method acting when he was eating actual sugar. But don't do that. Don't put your actors through that. If you're an actor, don't eat a bunch of sugar like that. That just sounds wrong to me. Several minor traffic accidents occurred when Will Ferrell walked through the Lincoln Tunnel in his costume, because people were so surprised and distracted from their driving to see him wearing an elf outfit. And here's a tip: if you're a driver, don't be distracted. Stay off your phones. Don't be looking at other things when you're supposed to be looking at cars ahead of you. And just pay attention when you're driving. And I'm going to go on a bit of a rant here. Just like if there's a traffic accident, that traffic accident is none of your business. If there's a way that you can get past the accident, then just drive past it. Don't look. You don't need to look. It's like you're far too busy in your day to pay attention to what's going on the shoulder of the road. Other people got places they need to go. You don't have to slow down and look at the accident. You don't. I promise you that situation is being taken care of. And if you don't think it's being taken care of, then you should pull your car over to the side of the road and help those people out and let everybody else carry on with their day, because you don't need to slow down to look at a traffic accident. And you certainly don't need to slow down to look at Will Ferrell dressed as an elf inside the Lincoln Tunnel. because you'll cause an accident. The cotton balls Buddy eats while he's in the doctor's office were actually cotton candy that had not been dyed. So that's brilliant because they do look like cotton balls, and it looks gross. And in this case, yeah, I'm glad he's eating candy and not actual cotton balls. Will Ferrell turned down $29 million to be in the sequel in late 2014. So if you remember, the budget for Buddy had been $33 million, and that was in 2003. And when we adjusted for inflation, well, if we adjusted for inflation for 2014 numbers, when Will Ferrell's made this offer, then that budget would have been $56 million. So they were effectively offering him in 2014 nearly half the budget of Elf from when he made the movie the first time. They offered him an enormous amount of money, and he turned it down. And I think that he had turned it down for the integrity of the film. It's like, what story could you possibly tell? It's like this film should not have a sequel, and they've never made a sequel. Like, I can see them somehow making a sequel because he has a child, and so they could talk about the adventures of his child. But what would that look like? And do we really need to see it? Is he really going to continue to act like a giant child now that he has a family, or is it something where it's going to look like Robin Williams in Peter Pan when he did the Peter Pan movie? I don't know, but I do think that this movie is well crafted in such a way that it does not require a sequel. And I think Will Ferrell was, I think the art mattered more than the possible money that they can make from trying to make a sequel from that original art project. Wanda Sykes was originally slated to play the Gimbel's manager, but backed out of the movie in the last minute. So this is going to explain why we have a male manager named Wanda. She was replaced by Faison Love, who insisted on still wearing the name tag made for Sykes, which is why his tag inexplicably says Wanda. I wish I had noticed that as I watched the movie. It's only funny afterwards. Director Jim Favreau used a remote control trigger in the Jack in the Box toys to get the startled reaction from Will Ferrell, which is kind of funny. I didn't realize that was because one of them, he looked genuinely startled. So that was kind of funny. The crew was adamant to make the movie in homage to Rankin and Bass's Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer from 1964. And I started to include references to that film in the confidence that all copyright issues had already been taken care of. This turned out to be an oversight when the studio's legal department informed them that no permission had been obtained from Rudolph's copyright holders. Soon, lawyers from New Line Cinema popped up in all facets of production, suggesting that Will Ferrell should start wearing a blue costume instead of the green, which would mean that they had to either reshoot all of his scenes or digitally color correct his and other suits. However, all legal issues were later cleared when they found out that Rudolph was never properly copyrighted, containing an error in the Roman numerals of its copyright notice. So the movie could freely conclude or include elements from it. And I think these are light elements. It's like they're not like hardcore deep elements, but there are lots of parts of this movie that will remind people of movies like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or Frosty the Snowman. You'll definitely see elements of that popping up in the movie. But I'm sort of, even though it's based on a technicality, I'm glad that the movie was able to proceed regardless of the copyright issues. On the final day of shooting in New York, it was just director Jon Favreau, Will Ferrell, and a cameraman driving around the city looking for locations to shoot. They would jump out and ask pedestrians if they would be willing to be extras for some quick cash while Farrell paraded around acting like Buddy, or they would let Farrell surprise people and ask their permission afterwards, like the man Buddy mistakes for Santa. Much of the montage when Buddy first arrives in New York City was filmed then, such as when getting his shoes shined and jumping between traffic. So yeah, there was a scene where Buddy is sitting at a shoe shine stand. So this is a real shoe shine stand. It's not set up by the. It's not in the studios. It's not something that's set up by the production. This is an actual real shoe shine stand, and Buddy is giggling while this shoe shine person is shining his curly shoes. And then him jumping in between traffic because he's jumping on the white stripes on the crosswalk. So doing that, all of this was just stuff that they filmed in the last day of filming. Screenwriter David Berenbaum's first ever script. Berenbaum was raised Jewish, but his family always celebrated Christmas. He was a huge fan of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer from 1964 by Arthur Rankin Jr. and Jules Bass, to which Elf pays homage. Berenbaum's father died when he was only 8, so the story is really about finding and connecting with one's father. That is certainly true. And lastly, according to Will Ferrell, at the movie's premiere, co-star James Caan approached him and said he felt Ferrell's performance in the film was too over the top while they were shooting the movie. However, when Caan saw the finished film, he later understood the energy Ferrell needed to put into his performance and later praised Ferrell, saying he gave a good performance. And this is why Will Ferrell is so good at what he does, because he knows what he looks like. He knows what makes people laugh. He knows what he has to do to bring on the fun. He understands what he is doing. He knows his part. He plays his position, as they say, and he's a star. So that's pretty awesome. So that's it for the trivia, and now we're going to talk about what the critics thought. So, what did the critics think? Well, the critics have it at 86% an audience score, or Popcornometer is at 79% on Rotten Tomatoes, and IMDb Reviews has it at a 7.1 out of 10. So yeah, that sounds about right. I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. I probably would score it higher. I think I gave it a 9. So I'm going to talk about the first critic. I don't know if I'm going to say his name right. As a matter of fact, I guarantee that I'm going to say it wrong because, you know, the letters and the consonants and the vowels are just arrayed in such a way that my mind is having a problem processing it. Like I'm trying to pronounce it in my head as I'm speaking to you, and I'm shutting down. My brain is frying right now over the pronunciation. But here we go. The first critic, Radhayan Simon Pilar, and he's from CBC Radio. He wrote, Elf's hopeful and uplifting response to post 9/11 cynicism is gentle, right up to the climax, where the world is huddled around their television sets watching news reports, trying to figure out what's that thing that crashed in New York City. And I had not thought of it in the context of this being a post 9/11 film. And yeah, people would be rightly concerned about a mysterious object crashing in Central Park, but they don't. It's not like they're overly. I don't know if the film had any regard for 9/11 when this was part of the plot. This story was actually written way before 9/11, so I don't know if this was added or if this was edited in or anything like that. I'm not sure how this sequence came about, but what I'm thinking is that in the context of 9/11, I don't even think that they really took that into consideration when they were filming this. But you know, after the fact, I'm thinking, yeah, it's almost as if this is a presentation of people healing after a terrorist attack. Sean Levi from the Oregonian wrote, If you're one of those fussy filmgoers who demand that a movie engage somewhat higher body parts, the heart, say, and the brain, you'll find only intermittent comfort and joy in this high concept, low wattage film. I can't say I agree with him all that much. I think that Will Ferrell, just in his character alone, brings enough heart to the movie. It's like I feel like he's all heart, and I think the people around him bring the brain. I think there's enough in this movie to engage the audience in both heart and brain. So I can't say I am all that in agreement with this particular criticism. Debbie Lynn Elias from Behind the Lens wrote, simplicity, goodness, sugar-coated, nostalgia, maybe a little hokey at times, endearing, enchanting. Go celebrate Christmas a little early with Elf, a new Christmas classic for the 21st century. This seems to be a contemporary review. I feel like there's a timestamp on it. But yeah, I think she's right. I think this is a new Christmas classic, or at least it was new when it came out. And all of the things she wrote about it, it's simplicity, it's goodness, it's nostalgia. It all fits. It all fits with, I think, with the message that this movie is trying to send. So yeah, I think it absolutely works in how she wrote it. And lastly, we have Lisa Rose from the Newark Star-Ledger. A resounding success in the laugh department, but it tries to warm hearts as well, and eventually collapses under the weight of its own sugar plum smalts. I cannot fully agree with this sentiment, but I think I can see what she's trying to say. I think that it's similar to what Debbie Lynn was saying. Not Debbie Lynn, I'm sorry. Sean Levi was saying it's similar in that, maybe it doesn't engage the heart, and that I don't think I fully agree with. But maybe they could have beefed up the story. I guess they could have beefed up the dad's story a little bit to make his turn from a Scrooge-like person to a more generous person. There could have been maybe more added to his story to beef him up. But I don't know if, at the same time, I'm not sure if that was even necessary. I mean, I felt it was a heartwarming experience enough for me. So, so I don't know if I agree with either Lisa or Sean. But she laughed, so at least she acknowledges that the movie was funny. Finally, Elf is, as of this recording, available on Max. That's it for today. Next week, I will go back to my childhood. After being bumped almost 2 weeks, we'll finally get to check out a game that I've been looking at. So chess or backgammon is fun, but do you want to play global thermonuclear war? Let's see what happens when we give artificial intelligence the nuclear codes in next week's movie, War Games. So finally, going to get to talk about war games after the delay. You can follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. Please contact us with any questions or comments or suggestions at currently named fanmail@backlickcinema.com. If you got another name that I could change it to, I'd be glad to know about it. Please rate and review on your favorite podcast app. And if you're listening on YouTube, please like or subscribe and leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. One last time, if you like the show, then please help us grow by spreading the word about Backlick Cinema, the podcast. Believe me, it matters. I've been Zoe Richardson. Be safe, share a movie from yesteryear with your loved ones, with your family. Hug them all. And if you're going to be anything, be outstanding.